Great. So welcome to the virtual summit here, Paul.
Thanks, Chad.
Best background. That is an amazing AI virtual background, Paul. Great. So,
Hey, Chad, I'm here as well.
yeah. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Good to talk to you guys. Hey, Paul. Hey, Chad.
Hey, great. So quick introductions, and then we're going to talk about two big topics. One is what's the latest in legislation and advocacy. And then also we'll touch on mergers and acquisitions because I love to watch Paul grimace when I ask him what are multiples in today's market. So first, intros. Paul, you're a physical therapist and an attorney. Can you fill in the gaps there with a quick introduction?
Sure. Thanks, Chad. I'm glad to be here with the group. Paul Welk, I'm an attorney and physical therapist, as Chad said, based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Most of my work is working with physical therapy practices, such as many of your members at Breakthrough PT Marketing. And a lot of my work in the last number of years has been in the merger and acquisition space with high consolidation of physical therapy practices. So look forward to chatting with the group.
Thanks, Paul. And Chris, same thing?
Chris Redding, Chairman and CEO, U.S. Physical Therapy. I'm also a therapist. I practiced for about 18 years at a high-level sports medicine practice, gradually got into business, been with U.S. Physical Therapy for the past 22 years, and I can attest by personal experience that Paul is by far the best merger and acquisitions attorney in the country. Does a great job for his clients.
Yeah, and I can attest as well. I feel like I should give a disclaimer for that, but yeah, great. Thank you both for being here again. The first thing that I want to talk about is advocacy, and I know there's a lot of changes that have been challenging to private practice over the last 5, 10, 15 years. Chris, I think you gave the best answer that I just remember like jaw dropping on stage. I think the three of us were on stage. We might have had a fourth in Dallas, January 2020. And there was a room full of like 200, 250 practice owners. And somebody said, "Hey, we're small. What are you doing about advocacy?" And you rattled off all of the initiatives that you had through APTQI and USPH. And I was just wondering if you could focus on the one or two biggest things that you see that you're working on right now in terms of advocacy that we all benefit from as not only partners of USPH but also private practice owners.
Yeah, Chad, I appreciate that. We've got a heavy rock to roll uphill. So most of our advocacy is done through APTQI, the Alliance for Physical Therapy Quality and Innovation. We have a website, as you would imagine, that lists everything that we're working on currently. We spend a lot of time in DC with our lawmakers on both sides. We have a lobby group, Liberty Partners, who does an amazing job for us in terms of treating us like we're their only client, and they have a lot of healthcare clients. We've got a bill right now that's balance and fall prevention related that would move an annual benefit to include physical therapists in screening for balance and fall related issues. Right now it sits on the medical side. And as you know, primary care doctors, one, are trained in how to do these assessments, and two, they don't have time. So that would move somebody's annual benefit on a no-cost basis for these seniors over to physical therapy. And then on the advocacy side, we've been working really hard on this legislatively and with CMS on everything reimbursement related. And, we obviously have some challenges there. The cuts that we received beginning in 2020, which have been enormous and, 5 years in sequence, were really as a result of an oversight by Mac, who didn't know physical therapy was in the code set that they intended to cut. They thought they were cutting orthopedic surgery, interventional pain medicine, our pain management specialists, and PM&R. Of course, our codes are scattered in there. And as they said, physical therapy, you guys were unintended, an unintended consequence of, them not knowing that. So they haven't fixed it. Obviously, we have what we have, but we continue to be in Washington a lot. The other thing I'll mention is, and this is getting a lot of attention, right now the difficulty in giving us the money that we deserve is because of the spend across the whole of the physician fee schedule and what it would cost to have annual inflationary upgrades and increases. It's a $10 billion lift. And so they need to pay for that. Well, we've come up with a pay for, and there's a program in Maryland called EQUIP. You can look it up. It essentially puts physical therapy in the driver's seat as the primary care director, what I'm going to call the primary care director, if there's a musculoskeletal problem. It's been a year in the making. The end result is somewhere between 10 and 15% aggregate savings if the physical therapist is directing the care. If you took that savings and spread it across all 50 states, it would pay for the entirety of the physician fee schedule fix for the next decade. And so we have those numbers, we have that data, that gets people to pay attention. Washington's a dysfunctional place, as we all know right now. And so we've got to just keep beating the drum. We have an Advocacy easy portal on our website. If you want to send your congressman or woman a note, just go to our website. It's simple. It takes 30 seconds, and you can see everything we're working on there. And we appreciate your help because we've got a lot to do.
And that's aptqi.com, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Great. I'll put that in the link for everybody. Paul, I know and thank you for that very thorough and complete answer, Chris. That was great. I think a lot of us, we just don't understand everything that's happening. Ultimately, in the end, on our behalf, we don't see all the work behind the scenes, and I know you do a great job of shining the light on that. So thank you for that. Paul, I know at our last event in Denver, a month or so ago, you had shared there was recent legislation that was at least happening in Pennsylvania. Any updates on that or other federal bills that we should be paying attention to complement what Chris just shared?
Sure. And I'll talk about some state level initiatives that we've seen. Chris talked a lot about some of the federal stuff that USPH and the other organizations are working on. A couple of things. One thing that we chatted about last month was, we've seen a few states that have enacted, conservative care first legislative efforts, and other states that I'm aware of are looking at that would essentially provide for either requirements or encouragement of physical therapy or other conservative care before, for example, prescribing opioids or looking at lumbar fusions, for example, for back pain. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that progresses, both whether it's legislatively or whether it's through payer programs that may push or require for that. I know we've had some discussions on that with portions of this group before. I think the other thing that I just wanted to touch on, before talking a little bit about, reimbursement on the payer side is really, there's a lot of organizations that are, backing a lot of legislative efforts. I'd encourage everyone here, to write those letters that, Chris mentioned earlier. I mean, we can walk in and lobby on behalf of the Pennsylvania Physical Therapy Association or APTA in our case. And that's great. It's wonderful. And we can educate them. But at the end of the day, whoever lives in their zip code and votes for them is going to carry a lot more weight than we will when, the rubber hits the road. And it's not hard to do. it's probably scary if you've never done it or it seems scary, but that's who they want to talk to. So I think with that little pitch on, go out and advocate, and your little push, will help more than you can imagine. The other piece I just want to talk about briefly is sort of payer collaboration. Again, I'll give an example here in Pennsylvania. We've been working for a couple of years with one of the larger payers, just trying to talk with them about the programs that they, roll out and how that affects PT and how to come to, some type of mutually agreeable, reimbursement program where, the best providers, I'll say, however you choose to define that, whether it's, this outcome measure or that, are ultimately, rewarded for the care or rewarded through, less requirements of administrative burden, getting pre-approvals or whatever that might be. And, in my humble opinion, sometimes those programs get rolled out and then they, cause a lot of problems. And then there's a rewind and try to, re-roll it out or modify the program. I think to the extent there can be those ongoing discussions and collaborations, whether it's with large providers, state chapters, state organizations, whatever that looks like, I think there's a real benefit to that so that we can have, we as the physical therapy profession can have a seat at the table rather than trying to, backpedal and deal with programs that, may, again, in my opinion, not always be the most aligned with the objectives.
Great. Thank you for that, Paul. In the 5 or so minutes that we have here remaining, I know one of the things that I had asked you, Paul, in Denver in our fireside chat without a fire, I had asked you, in terms of the last 10 deals and just full transparency for everybody, I have done both an internal sale of my practice with Paul and an external sale, and I am a USPH partner. So this is public knowledge where, we were looking for somebody like a USPH who we could partner with, that would provide all of the back end service where we were suffering or really like struggling to keep up with as a practice. And so we found that great partner, allows us to grow and expand while all of that is handled. It's been awesome for us, has worked out really well. And we worked with you, Paul, through that process. And now we're partners with Chris. So just, yeah, full transparency. That's at least my personal share. You've talked about you've seen some different structures in merger and acquisition opportunities that have happened over this past year. Can you either talk about that or talk about like what you're seeing? I won't ask you about multiples or anything like that, but can you talk about like some of the more innovative deal structures that you've seen recently?
Sure. And I think a couple of trends that we're seeing, one, I'm not sure I'd call it a trend because it's been around a long time, but still, seeing most of the transactions by far that we work on do have the seller owner having some form of ownership, going forward. Obviously, that incentivizes the seller owner to see the practice succeed, for the benefit of that individual and, the acquiring typically majority partner, such as, USPH in that transaction. So essentially, aligning everyone's interest as part of the process. I did want to highlight just two things that we've seen, and I jumped on right when Mary DeLong was starting to talk about, AI and what she's seeing. And as Chad knows, I probably have a little work to do in terms of my use of AI in day-to-day life. That said, the other day I got my first purchase agreement that I received via email from a physical therapy buyer that was very extensive in terms of the representations and warranties about was AI used properly in the practice, what data was shared, what was put into it, kind of essentially that buyer looking hard at making sure that that data was treated appropriately, through the use of AI. And I think maybe the last thing I'll touch on and is, we have seen, I would say, more transactions than historically that have some type of an earnout component to them, whether that's, due to uncertainties in the market or, changes that need to be put in place at the time of a transaction. So again, essentially, incentivizing economically that practice to continue to perform after the acquisition closes.
Great, love it. Chris, feel free to talk about that, or what you've done in the past, which has been very rewarding, is what you look for. And I believe right now you have 730 plus clinic locations, 180 plus partnerships. Can you talk about what you look for in a practice that you're going to partner with?
Sure. The main thing we look for is a great cultural fit. We generally we want a partner, as Paul said, that still has gas in the tank, and it has the energy and the drive and the vision to want to carry the practice forward. And so that's really important to us. In any opportunity, we look for coherence between what the story is that kind of has made up the business to that point, and then whether that story deflects or changes for what they want to do going forward. And so I think we look for coherence in that story. So for instance, if somebody has 3 or 4 clinics and yet they have a plan that they're very excited about where they're going to get to 10, in the next few years, but they haven't opened anything in the last, half dozen years, there's kind of a lack of coherence there. And so again, we're not trying to overlay on somebody what the plan should be, but it should actually be a plan that if we're gonna work together, we put resources toward it and we get to it. It shouldn't be made up, and so it should be real. It should be something that's actionable. The other thing I'll say right now, just in terms of deals, and Mary's part on compliance, always important to us. The other thing that we're seeing right now, we're having to invest a lot of money in it, is just around cybersecurity. We've had more cyber incidents this year than we've had probably cumulatively in the last 10 years. It's been a massive uptick in cyber threats. We're spending a lot more money on it. We're utilizing a lot more external resources. We don't necessarily expect people coming in to be, fully on top of that, but awareness and in the beginnings of kind of a cohesive plan is helpful, so that we're not starting from scratch. So I think the rest of the things are pretty pedestrian, normal stuff.
Great. Appreciate that, Chris. How about some love for Paul and Chris here, everybody, in the chat? Also, opportunity here for you, Paul. If somebody wants to contact you, I know there was a question asked about multiples. I said, please contact Paul directly. What's the best way for somebody to do that?
Sure. Just email is fine. That's just pwelk@tuckerlaw.com. I can add it to the chat if you want.
Great. And for you, Chris, if somebody's looking to become a potential partner with USPH, what's the best way for them to explore that?
Yeah, they can either send me an email. The easiest way is a text. Everybody has my cell phone, so it's 713-828-6514. Then 713-828-6514. Chad, you have it. Everybody else in the world has it. Just send me a text and let me know, and we'll follow up with our development team and be happy to talk to you.
Wow, that was gutsy, Chris. Everybody have your text, and then I saw it at the top of the Zoom. So thank you for calling in. Very much appreciate your time, the both of you. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, guys.